Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Medium's Porch. I am your host, Kathleen Boldt, and we are back again. I'm happy to have you here. We're back again with another episode talking about the process, privilege, and power of spirit communication. Now, this is our theme that we use in almost all of our episodes. I love to introduce you to mediums of different backgrounds, mediums with different philosophies, although you'll probably notice there's a pattern. Most of them line up with spiritualism and some of the principles that we work with, and also many of them are in line in keeping with what I value as a medium myself. So as a registered medium in Lilydale, I work in the summers and I take in clients. Well, I want to let you know that while I'm around Lilydale, there are many, many people wandering there, and I talk to many people while I'm around. Last summer, I met a wonderful human being, and I wanted to bring her and introduce her to you today. She is a natural medium. Now, what do I mean by that? All of us are born with natural gifts. We have our psychic abilities, our intuition. Most of us recognize it as intuition because we're intuiting information from the spirit world for ourselves. Psychic abilities, we may be picking up things for other people. And then mediums, we make it our objective to receive information from spirit and to talk to those that desire and invite us to share information from the spirit world with them. Now, as our guest is coming to you today, she has been called to do service in a spiritual way her whole life. And she has used her gifts. And I wanted to bring her on because I think many of us, many of you listeners that haven't become registered mediums or haven't taken on the mantle of being a healer, you may be recognizing in your life that you have intuitive capacity, that you have this sense of connection with spirit. And I do hope you do. And a lot of what we do in Lilydale and the courses we offer here, both online through the season and also in the summer, are here for you to develop and unfold, mostly unfold what is already given to you and what you already have going on. And your passion shows up every time you watch one of our shows, every time you serve somebody else. That learning process and that giving process are all part of what this service from spirit to spirit, spirit in the physical form, is doing. So I'm getting off on a tangent here, talking about the meaning behind all of this, but let's get to brass tacks here. Let's introduce you to our guest. Our guest today is Kathleen Caputo. We both share a name there. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
So Kathy, I'm going to read out her information so I don't miss anything, because I get excited here sometimes and I want to make sure I cover everything. So Kathy is an ordained interfaith minister, and she focuses on providing positive and life-affirming resources to children of all cultures and backgrounds. And this is following a 30-year career as a business executive. She founded a nonprofit called Source of Guidance, Inc. And this is dedicated to helping children and families have happy, healthy, and fulfilling lives and to better respond to life's challenges. Kathy received her ministerial credentials from Emerson Theological Institute. She is a staff minister at the Center for Spiritual Living, Long Island, and she has led more than 100 programs for children. Kathy has also taught workshops on creativity and guided imagery for the New York school system, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and the City University of New York. Now, she has a very special guest that is joining her, and that is Haddo Bear. There's Haddo Bear right there. Haddo Bear is going to be joining us today. She's an author. She's written a book called Haddo Bear's Secret. So that's what this book is, Haddo Bear's Secret. And it is the first in a series of books that Kathy is authoring to teach children and parents that we are all perfect, just as we are. So Kathy, again, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. You told me about this book back when we met, and I got very excited about it because of the principle behind it and how it aligns with a lot of the stuff we do in spiritualism. But what I'd like to do before we get into the thick of it, the thick of the book, that is, let's know a little more about you. I know our listeners, many of them are empaths, and you are a self-proclaimed and identified empath. Can we begin by you telling us a little more about that process for you?
Sure. Oh, first of all, thank you for having me. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to be on your podcast. And welcome to everyone who's here today. Yes, I had mentioned to you that when I was very little, I wanted to be a nurse. I always wanted to take care of people. And my mother told me that when she brought me my first day in kindergarten, I was crying and didn't want to go. But I saw a little girl across the room who was crying, and she said, "You stop crying." You went over, put your arms around her, and said, "What's the matter?" And she said, I wet my pants. And I told her the teacher's going to be okay. The teacher's going to help you. And my mother said, "Where did all that come from with you? You know, nobody really taught you to do that." And I realized much later on in life that I knew what other people were thinking sometimes. I picked up energy and I just wanted to help. And even though I went into many different things, I actually did start working in a hospital when I was about 16 as a candy striper, they called it. It was really the person who emptied bedpans and everything else. But after about 6 months of that, I realized I was going home every night and I was very concerned about everybody that I took care of. And I realized this wasn't for me. And it was a big realization to find out what I wanted to do my whole life was not going to be. So I went into many different things, into commercial real estate and commercial art, but yet I always wanted to heal. So I started learning energy healing, and that was therapeutic touch that was started by a professor of nursing at NYU. And I found that as I was treating people, and usually you were just going over the energy and feeling what you're feeling with the energy, but I would also intuitively know where to go on that person's body. And people would say, "But how do you know this?" And it wasn't just feeling, it was, I was getting messages to,
Okay.
to do certain things. And then I had a friend who was a pretty well-known psychic, and she told me, "You're going to be going on to do more things." And she could see people from across the world. And she said, "You're going to be able to do that." And I said, "I'm not going to be able to do that." Are you kidding? And one day, probably about 10 years later, I was on the phone with my best friend. She was in New Jersey, I was in New York, and she had MS. And all of a sudden, her hip was right in front of my face. And I said, "Judy, are you in a lot of pain?" And she said, "Yeah." And that night, the way I used to heal then, I would imagine myself being with the person and doing therapeutic touch. And a few days later, I got a letter from her saying she woke up with no pain, that she had feeling back in her leg that she hadn't had in years. And it seemed to progress more and more and more, where I could be with somebody and my eyes would go to a certain place, and that I knew there was something that needed to be helped there. Or I don't know if you've ever seen The Good Doctor on television, and he would see holograms of the patient, and that's what I see sometimes. I see a
Okay.
hologram.
Wow.
Uh, so I've helped people across the world, seeing them and letting them know you need to see a different doctor. One woman was really dying, and the doctor said, "Oh, we're going to watch it." And I said, "No, she has to see another doctor." And they told her if she hadn't, she would have been dead in 2 weeks. So this is something that just comes to me. I don't plan on doing it,
Mhm.
but it's something that I love to be able to help people. Um, and I also have people though from the other side that start speaking with me. I volunteered after 9/11 to do healing, and I wanted to be stationed at the site, but they put me all the way uptown at the family center, you know, where you saw all the pictures on the wall of people that were missing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did therapeutic touch there, and on the family members, the police officers. And then a couple of nights later, I was going to sleep. And you know how you're in the middle of, you're not awake, but you're not asleep. And all
Yes.
of a sudden, so many people came to me. asking me to get messages to their families. But it was a little, at that point, it was too much for me. I was used to having maybe one person, but I felt like I had 1,000 volts of electricity going into a little AA battery. And I cut it off. I put the lights on, it came downstairs, and I said, why did I do that? And I couldn't get it back again. And I have spirits in my house who want to get my attention, and one of them takes my remote control to my TV and throws it on the floor.
Oh, wow.
And when that was happening, I had seen somebody come out of my dining room. I saw somebody going in there, a different person, a younger person. And I went in the dining room because I figured they're hanging out in my dining room and they're not paying any rent here either. And I was going to tell them, look, I want to help you, but I want to help you move on to go to God or whatever you believe in. And I walked into the dining room and I felt this love that I have never felt in my whole life. And I started to cry and I'm thinking, what's wrong with you? And I started feeling that the one younger man who had a uniform on from the Revolutionary War, I had the feeling that I had been married to this man. And when he was going off to war, I was telling him, don't do it. And he got killed and I was angry. And I felt that we had a wonderful relationship. And I believe that he's the one that's throwing things to get my attention. And finally, one day I see it lifting up again. And I said, look, now you're scaring me. Why you keep doing this? And I said, please don't do this anymore. I'm going to help you to move on. He never did it again. And I see orbs all over my house. So there's a lot of things happening. But other people say to me, aren't you scared? No, I'm not frightened. We're all connected. There's only one life, and that's the life of God, or whatever you think it is or believe it is. And our life never dies. We just transition into something else. When I teach children about death, I explain to them about a caterpillar, that all of a sudden you don't see the caterpillar anymore and you think it died, and it puts this cocoon around it, but it comes out again as a butterfly, and that's what we all do. So this is what I love teaching children and adults.
Yes, it's interesting that you started with this story about you being a child and helping a child. So clearly you felt this call to work with children all along in some form, right? Because obviously, having been an empath, you probably had a lot of experiences where things were happening that you didn't understand. And I know a lot of our viewers and listeners, and please do, listeners, if you're paying attention here and want to put some comments on the bottom about your own experience of feeling like, oh gosh, I don't understand what's happening, or I'm picking up sensitivity, because I think there's a lot of us that have that natural gift of empathy. And some of us come born that way, and some of us have trauma and have to become hyper vigilant and securing our safety, or our body starts to just do that. So we become more sensitive. I mean, there's different ways of us all getting there, but the empath is very common among those that can speak to the spirit loved ones because of our ability to be sensitized for that spiritual energy, that subtle energy. So it sounds like, I mean, you've got a lot there that we can unpack from what you told about your story in a nutshell. Lots of questions came up in my head. But it sounds like yes, you've been an empath since the beginning. You've been communicating with spirits. You've been in the flow. And I love that about what you did with the children. Like, you didn't question it. You didn't think about it. You just identified somehow on some level with your own feeling of fear, and saw fear in someone else. And there was just this recognition that, hey, I know that I don't want you to feel that way. I know it feels bad. Right. And I think, would you say that's, a moral that keeps a lot of us on lockstep? It keeps a lot of us from doing things that are more selfish, because we recognize from our own experience that it hurts, and we really come from our soul, and we don't want to hurt anybody else. So we actually keep ourselves in check. Would you agree with that, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And And also I find, of course, and I'm sure a lot of you do, empaths are always healing everybody else, but not healing ourselves. And we're
Yeah,
not
I
taking
would say
care of
that's common.
ourselves. And I think
Guilty.
that's a big thing too,
Yeah.
is to realize that in order for us to help other people, we've got to be strong, and we have to be able to take care of ourselves. Just like when you're on a plane, they tell you if those things come down, the oxygen, put it on yourself first before you try to help somebody else. Because
Right.
if you're not here anymore, they're not going to get any help either. So that's been a big lesson to me, and I've only now started to realize that, and being able to say no, no, I'm not going to do that. It's been very difficult in my life, and I think a lot of empaths are like that, because
Yeah.
we do feel what other people are feeling, and we don't want them to have that. There's really only two ways of living. We're either in love or we're in fear. Now, a lot of people think that the opposite of love is hate, but it's not. It's fear. And when we're feeling fear, we don't want somebody else to do that too.
Right. And love and fear can't be in the same place.
No, they can't. You're
You
right.
can't feel love and feel fear. They can't coexist. I've thought about that a lot. It's like they just can't be in the same mindset, the same energy. It's just when you feel love, you feel safe, you feel connected, you feel alive, right? And there's no
Hmm.
fear just can't come in. So that's beautiful, because that will raise our vibration, so that when we are doing our empath work, or we
Hmm.
are being connected to somebody else in an intuitive way, we're only going to come from love, because if we come through love at that high vibration, we don't bring fear to bear, and the other person's fear can dissolve in the light of the love we're offering and blending with them energetically. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And what I teach myself, because sometimes it's not easy, and I teach children, is if you are having a problem with somebody else, rather than staying in the anger, and you can acknowledge that, but have love, send love for that person. And I teach them about the word namaste. Namaste. I honor the God in you that's in me. I might not like your actions, but we're still all connected. We're all made out of the same source.
Yeah. I know many years ago, let's say not in the late 90s. Okay, I'm not that old, right? Kidding. Yeah, so there was a period of time when I was a teacher, and I was going out in the world, and then I started doing a lot of meditation, practice yoga, became a
Hmm.
yoga teacher, did all that, and that was in the early 2000s. And I wanted to take meditation to the school system, because as I was working in the school system, I'm like, this is perfect, right? Telling
Hmm.
children right from the get-go that they can manage their state, that they can manage their energy, that they can manage their emotions, and that there are tools to do that. Giving them, and not that I would give them a lesson on that, but they
Hmm.
would have that experience through doing small, short meditations, thinking about things, doing this whole mindset thing, right? But the school system wasn't ready for it then. And so I'm glad to see there's some focus on that now. There are some school systems that are putting attention there. I think that's quite beautiful. And I know this is a perfect segue into talking more about Hado Bear. Um, you do work with children in the community, right? You go out into the community and you deliver those messages, as among others. Now, your first publication, since we had brought this up at the beginning, Hado Bear's Secret. Tell us a little more about what prompted you before we get into the plot of the story, what prompted you to start publishing something? And I know obviously you're helping people and teaching them, but tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, I always wanted to write a children's book, and I was on the phone with a medium, and she said to me, this is back in 2015, I think. She said, "There's words all around you, and you're going to write a book." And she said, "It's not going to just be a book. It's going to be a package of things." Really? And so about a year later, I was really thinking about it. And a friend of mine sent me something from a New York Times best-selling book, The Hidden Messages in Water. And it was written by a Japanese scientist called Dr. Masaru Emoto. And so I looked at his book, and I always teach about consciousness, about how important our thoughts, our words, and our beliefs are. Well, he was trying to show the scientific community about this. And they were like, yeah, okay. But he also believed that they're reflected back in water. And he started doing experiments, and I'll just show you one very quickly. And so he put 2 vials of water. He wrote, "Thank you" on one, and did I say thank you? Yeah, and "you fool" on the other. And he left it there overnight, and he took a droplet of water out of each one. And the next day, he actually froze it. And then he looked at them in a high-powered microscope, and this is what it turned into. The one that said thank you turned into a beautiful water crystal, like a snowflake. The one that said you fool turned into this ugly looking thing. So he did these experiments with just about every word, with prayers, with music, with pictures. And the one that he absolutely loved and that I saw was this beautiful water crystal that was from love and gratitude. And I love rings. And I said, boy, would I love to have a ring that looks like this.
Did you get one?
Well, I'll tell you, one of my best friends that I taught with at FIT, I realized she's a jewelry designer. So I called her up and I told her about this. And I said, I really want to make a line of jewelry, and that what we could do is put it in a little box with a little pamphlet in that, what it means, and to show people that maybe aren't in a certain religion or whatever, bring it out to the masses about how important our thoughts and words are. So she calls me up a couple of days later. She said, Dr. Massaro is going to be in California. And we made reservations to go to California, not knowing if we were going to meet him. And I said, let me see if I can find a number that I can call to talk to somebody and tell them we're coming there. And when I found the number, his son answered the phone. And I told him our perceptions of what we wanted to do and make jewelry. He said, when you come here, I'm going to have the president of the company. We're going to have a meeting with you and find out what we can do together. So to make a very long story short, they loved it. And they said another company had come to them with almost the same thing, but Kathy, and her name was Kathy. I have all these Kathys and Catherines around me. And she said, and they said, but we like the way you come to us. You're more spiritual. And we were supposed to have a license to use all of his pictures.
Right.
We hired attorneys. We couldn't come to an agreement. But the one great thing that came out of that is that we're going past the gift shop, and they had this big white polar bear, huge, in the doorway. And my friend, knowing that I have not grown up yet, I might be mature, but I haven't grown up. And she said, Kathy, that has to be your bear. And $125 later, in a big box on the plane, I brought him home, and I named him Hado Bear, because Dr. Emoto said that the word Japanese word Hado is the vibrational pattern of energy that everything is made out of. And I decided to use him as the subject of my book. And so finally, I was writing all things. I'd be watching TV, get an idea in my head. And I was already in a very high-powered real estate development company. And I worked many hours. And I figured I'm going to have to take like a week off from work to be able to put this book together. And one day, it was a beautiful day, and I said, I don't have to go to church today. I have somebody else taking over for me. And I went out, and the whole thing was downloaded as I walked in this beautiful day. That wasn't supposed to go off. I'm so sorry. So I published the book myself. Thank goodness I had people to help me. I had a wonderful illustrator, Melanie Hall, who is award-winning illustrator, and we've become wonderful friends. And she was a friend of Kathy's. And so I started writing the book, and I wanted to teach children about how our thoughts and words come back to us, and to always be kind, and that we're all perfect just the way we are, and to always be yourself. So that's basically the book. And it's in the beginning, it's kind of a true story. I have him in the gift shop, and he actually has a secret, and the secret is that he can talk. And towards the end of the book, this little girl who's this woman comes by just like I did, was told to buy the bear, and he was very upset because nobody was buying him, and he thought, nobody loves me. And he finally found out it's okay, you're okay just the way you are. And he went home with this woman who I believe in the book her name is Marie, and she's with the little girl that she's taking care of, the niece. And he finally opens up to her that he can talk, because she was crying, saying in her new school she doesn't think anybody likes her. And so they finally let the aunt and uncle know that he can talk. And it was like, oh my God, everything's getting thrown off the table. And they finally accepted that the bear can talk. And the aunt explained to both of them, be yourself. You're perfect just the way you are. And the little girl finally decided, after hearing that, you know what, maybe I'll go to school anyway. She didn't want to go to school. And so they ended up helping other children by letting other children know too, that, you're okay. There was a little boy that it was his first day, and he was scared, and he was trying to run, and he really couldn't run as fast as the other kids. And so Hado Bear here is showing him, but it's okay. We're going to be your friend. And they ended up making a whole bunch of friends. And in the end, they finally realized that you're special just the way you are. And this is what I want to teach children. And in the back of the book, there are questions that an adult can use to go over the book and find out, does the child have any questions? What did they learn from the book? And we also have an exercise called Turn It Around. And I give the children 10 negative statements, and then give them 10 positive statements they can pick to turn it around. So if they are having a difficult day, if they're going into a test and they don't think, oh, I'm not going to do very well, and that was me when I was a kid, if they have an affirmation that says, I know I studied enough, I know that I know the answers to these questions, and all other things that kids go through, that maybe this person doesn't like me, or I'm afraid to go to this party because maybe I'm not going to have a good time. And they can turn that around by saying, wherever I am, I have a good time. And I wish I had known this when I was a child. And the kids that I had in my junior church that I started many years ago, they've grown up very differently. They grew up without the fear. They grew up with confidence, and they grew up knowing that there's a God or something that created us, but that's a loving person. That not a person, but that's a loving spirit. That's a loving energy, and that's all inside of me. And when you know that, you have to be powerful. You're co-creator with that creator, and we all have the ability to create the lives that we want to live.
So you've noticed a difference in children that were raised with that
absolutely,
principles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So,
and viewers and listeners, go ahead and write in the bottom there. I know I can relate to, you have a bad day and you're like, how do I turn this around? Right. And sometimes it is as simple as words. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let us know what your experience is, listeners. We'd love to see and hear what's going on for you in that regard, because I think that's really where some of our spiritual path lay. It's not just in service, it's also in managing ourselves, taking personal responsibility. That's one of the spiritualist principles, is to be personally responsible for your behaviors and actions. So
That's
the
it.
more we do that, the more we can be that presence in the world. And as you said, you've even seen the result of children that were raised that way and how
Absolutely.
they're different contributors to the world as they've matured.
Mm-hmm. Because, well, especially when I was a child, many, many years ago, I couldn't tell anybody about how I was feeling, and knowing these things. And I finally opened up to my dad when I was in my 30s. I knew my uncle that was moving to Florida. I was never going to see him again. And I felt guilty that I didn't say anything. And I told my father, and he said, yeah, we probably would have thought you were a little nuts that you knew that. But he was open enough and said, but how did you know? And I happen to have a book by Edgar Casey, and in the back of the book, it had this round picture, and it had
Mhm.
little points on it. And I said, Dad, there's only one life, and we're all a point of that life. We're all included in it. So what the one mind of the Creator knows, we actually know too. We have the ability to know that when we're open to it. And I said, I've been open to it since I was a kid.
Wow.
So we could all do this. This is not something that, is different for me. We can all do this. And he was open enough, and they found out that what I was telling people was coming true. And this is what I want children to understand, and parents, because so many children you'd see them staring at a wall, or they're talking to somebody and the parents don't see. And I'm trying to explain to parents that please don't shut them down, that they might be really seeing somebody that maybe you don't see, because we are all connected, and the people that have already passed on really don't leave us. And that's very important to me to teach at this point. And the children that are very, very ill that I deal with, and most of them I'm not even with, they're all over the United States. And I send them the book. I send them baby Hotto Bear that I had made.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a comfort animal for them to hold on to. And I also send them a membership certificate to the Hotto Bear Superhero Club, because these children are all superheroes, including their families. And since Hotto Bear can talk, I have an app that I make him talk, and I send a video to that child specifically for what they're going through, and help them to understand that, yes, it's very important to listen to your doctor in the hospital, but also you have the ability to help yourself. And I'll do a little meditation with them, teach them about what superheroes do, that
Hmm.
we know that we're all perfect just the way we are, and that we can change our thought about something. So if they're having chemo, instead of being scared, say, that's a superpower in my body that's going to help me. And that changes things where they're not as fearful.
Well, it makes sense because even though it's a chemical coming into your body, you talked about Dr. Emoto's studies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
anything that has some kind of fluidness to it will respond to the frequency around it, or
Mm-hmm.
any energy. But in this case, we're talking about something fluid, even if it is chemical. Your belief and your energy and your mindset and your words, they're all going to influence that and put it in for good. So that's brilliant.
That's it, because we're all made out of water.
Yeah.
I read the book to 800 children at my former grammar school. And after I finished with the older children, they came to me and they said, we have 3 preschools, and the children want to see Hotto Bear there. So I went there. And even the little 4-year-olds, they got this. And of course, I showed them Dr. Emoto's experiments, because if you tell a child your thoughts and your words are going to come back to you, it's a little too esoteric for a child. But when you show him or her the experiments, and they can see it physically, it makes a total difference to them, and they understand. So I use this to help kids that are either bullied or are bullies, to show them that what you're doing to somebody else, you're doing to yourself, because our actions, our words, and our beliefs not only have something to do with you, but it can affect somebody else too. And I also teach them that if they are being bullied, if they start getting strong and knowing that they're okay and what this other person is telling them is not your truth, that can help to turn them around. I also have how to bear coaching for kids, so that I will teach children, personally, also over the phone or on Zoom.
Well, I know that it's so beautiful the work that you've done here, both in terms of the sentiment, the meaning, the theme, the plot of the story, etc. It's so relatable, and I just love the artwork as well. And I know you mentioned it was
It was
Melanie, right?
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned. Let me find her name, Melanie Hall, and
Mm-hmm.
she was exhibited in the original art show at the Society of Illustrators, at the collection of the Maz Museum at the University of Findlay on Ohio. So she's got she teaches at a BFA and an MFA program.
Yes.
So
Amazing.
she's a well-renowned artist, and she really is expressive. I want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to share your website with the screen share
Sure.
here,
Mm-hmm.
so that people can see that first page. And you had mentioned about the videos. So I wouldn't mind showing a little bit of that video as
Oh, that'd
well.
be great. Uh-huh.
Let me see. Oop, I've got the wrong share on. Stop share. There we go. You got to pick your share. A little bit clumsy without a technician here. So I think this is it here. Yeah, there we go. So this is your opening page, and it has that beautiful illustration. Obviously, you've been continuing to work with the artist. And here's your little welcome. I love this.
And welcome, everyone. I'm Bear. Did you know that having good and positive thoughts and saying good and positive words can help you to have a good day? Thinking of the things that make you happy and being grateful for them helps you to have more of them in your life. Those good, happy, and grateful thoughts are like a magnet. They attract more good things to you. They can even help to turn around a day that might not be going so well and make you feel better. And see what happens. You didn't know that you have that superpower, did you? You have all the power already to make your day a good one. See you soon.
So is that similar to what your app is doing there?
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
So very good. That was very fun. Thanks for letting me share that. I thought that was such a pretty little site, and it gives people an idea of how that works. So do you find the age of the children, is there a specific age that works better? Because I know as an adult with an inner child, reading this, it's a good reminder, right? So I think it would appeal to many ages, but do you find there's a niche that you work in with this?
Yes. From about 4 to about 11. And the 4-year-olds, of course, it's a read aloud book. The parents can do them, and as they get to be 7 or 8, they can read it themselves.
Okay.
If you go on Amazon and you look at some of the reviews, there's so many adults on there saying that they learn things from Auto Bear. I have a cousin who, unfortunately, she's one of the most negative people you could possibly find. And she said to me, I learned so much from Auto Bear. So I said, that's great. So she said, I'm going to try to turn that around now. And I think it's helped her. She's wonderful.
I love this because I know in spiritualism, the belief is that, at least my understanding of the belief, is that as a medium, you are doing your ministry, and clearly doing this work, sharing how to tap into your higher vibration and to work with people in a sacred way is part of your mission, right? That is part of your ministerial mission.
Yeah.
Are there other things that you're doing? I know you have training in hypnosis. I know you mentioned the healing already, but I know you have
Mhm.
hypnosis. How do you work with hypnosis?
For a long time, I was doing CDs for cancer patients, adults.
Okay.
And there's a lot of canned things out there, but I found, everybody has a different experience, and everybody has different treatments. So I would do an intake and find out what are they going through. Same thing I do with the little kids.
Right.
And then I would make a CD specifically for them. And I had one young man, he had a rare form of leukemia. And he came to my house, and I was going to do guided imagery. And all of a sudden I see behind him is his wife, and she's got his tummy out to here. And they had 3 children, and they were having another one. And he was supposed to have a transplant. And he said, I want to live to be here with my children. So I made the CD, and he had the bone marrow transplant, and he listened to the CD every day, 3 times a day. And the doctors were amazed at how quickly he was able to go home. And so that's what I haven't been doing as much of that lately. I've been concentrating on the children. But I just find that when we can see ourselves as well, that's when things start changing, because there's 2 parts of our consciousness, and there's never an unconscious. There's 2 consciouses. One is the conscious mind that I'm using to talk to you. The other is the subconscious. And the subconscious mind is like an igloo, not an igloo, an iceberg.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Okay.
the ice on the top, but we don't realize that there's more of it way underneath the water. And our subconscious mind does not know the difference between what we believe is real or not real. It's like the soil, whatever you plant into it, and those plantings that we do is our thoughts, is what it does to grow. It doesn't have any discernment whether we feel it's right or wrong. So if a farmer comes along and he wants to have a grove of apple trees, but he plants lemon seeds, the soil's not going to say, Mr. Farmer, excuse me, you planted the wrong thing. So that's what happens with our subconscious mind. And so we can learn not, I don't like the word reprogram because it has a negative connotation. What I teach is that we can put the subconscious mind in a different direction. And so when we can see ourselves either in our mind's eye or imagine ourselves as being well, and that's what I'm teaching children, see yourself as being well, see yourself as already outside playing with your friends. And you can do that while you're having your treatment. And it just enhances anything else that's happening for you with treatment or with your doctors or nurses. And I never tell a child not to do anything else, but we can change our bodies. We can change our experience by changing our thoughts and our beliefs about it, and the words. So many times my mother used to say, I can't stand something. And eventually, because she had smoked and her arteries were so clogged, she almost lost her leg. And I said, she kept saying, I can't stand, I can't stand. And people don't realize. And a lot of people say, my arthritis. Well, you're owning that when you do that. You could say the arthritis that I'm experiencing, but that's not your truth. Your truth is that every cell in your body is perfect, whole, and complete. We've just forgotten about that. And we've been taught the opposite.
Okay.
We've been taught a lot that when you're 40, your eyes are going to go. And all of a sudden we realize at 40, we ended up wearing glasses. And it's just, that's what I want to teach people from the time they're little, so they don't have to unlearn all the things I had to unlearn.
Right. Just to add another example, there was a medium teacher that taught me very, very early in my training, my unfolding, that the same thing. And in her example, and I don't mean to be rude here, but some people say, oh, that pisses me off. Right.
Yes, exactly.
And that was the example she used. And she taught our class that. And she said she was saying that for years, and then ended up having urinary tract issues.
Yes. Yeah.
And so she said she tuned into that, changed that, and was able to heal that. So, we don't have to fear like we're always going to be stuck somewhere. If we are doing it, but we certainly change and shift and adapt so that our body, because our body is a healing engine, right? From doing healing, you recognize that, the person helping us heal is not necessarily the healer that's making the healing happen. This is a process our body knows to do for itself, always trying to come back to its own equilibrium, to its natural blueprint of perfection. And so we have a lot more power, like you said, with our words and our thoughts than we even realize. And, it's a practice. That's, I think, is something that we can think of differently. Our listeners out there, our viewers, please know that this is a practice. This isn't something you arrive at, you're good at, or you're bad at. You just kind of nuance it. You keep moving with it. You keep growing, you keep unfolding, you keep adapting. And we train ourselves as much as we have these lovely tools and reminders around us, like podcasts from Lilydale, like classes from Lilydale.
Exactly.
Oh, and I want to mention, we have a Children's Week. Were you aware of that? I don't know that I mentioned
No.
it. Yeah.
Wow.
Kathy, we have a Children's Week in the summertime where we devote several mediums and teachers and helpers come in and teach children the opportunity that they will get in that experience to move through their intuition, to even get to the point where they're healing and doing mediumship. So, it gives them an understanding very early on. I mean, back in the day of history of spiritualism, they would have enough people enrolled that they would have, they called it the Lyceum. There's like an educational school that they would have for the children, like a Sunday school, where children could come en masse, and they had a lot of enrollments at that time, and they would teach them about the values of spiritualism, the principles of spiritualism, and how to live every day with your natural gifts, which I think is wonderful that you're going out in the world and offering that to people. And I think it's really great that, like the hypnosis, right? There's a child within all of us, right? The innocence that we carry. And when we address that and embrace that for what it is, it allows us to be like that fresh spring flower that starts to blossom and grow. So coming at it from that angle, even as an adult, I think is a stunningly beautiful thing. Now, I had just mentioned one of the other things you do, which is the hypnosis, but the other thing that you've done in creation of this journey and mission you're on with the Hado Bear and other services with Spirit, you have created a nonprofit organization called Source Guidance. Can you tell us a little bit about its purpose and what it's there for and how people can get in touch with you?
Sure. So Source of Guidance is basically for children that are seriously ill or have special needs. And if you go on my website, you'll see that I have programs for hospitals where Hado Bear can make, and it depends on what the hospital wants, where the hospital can have videos of when a child comes into the hospital and they're scared, that Hado Bear welcomes them, and they can have that, in the reception area or on an iPad, and says, we're here to help you, and helps to make them feel, okay, I'm going to be okay. Something before they're going to have a treatment, to help them understand that it's going to be something that's might be going into your body, but it's like helpers that are going to get rid of whatever you want to get rid of. Something before they have an operation, to help to see themselves as past the operation and being well. Something when they go home, so it's congratulations, you got through everything. And then something else that they can take home with them to continue doing this and seeing themselves as well and progressing. So that's part of it. And then the other part is the gift package that we have, where we have an autographed book. We have a baby Hado Bear, and they get a membership certificate, and they also get a video of Hado Bear.
Nice.
And the parents too. I've gotten to know a lot of the parents, and it's just, if they need to talk, I can talk to them. I've gotten people all the way in California that I'm close to now, and I want to be able to go now around the world, around the United States, and meet all these children. The past couple of years, we've lost a lot of those little ones, and I love every single one of them. But some of them, sometimes you meet a person, you just have that connection, that really strong connection. And there's a couple of the kids that I really had that connection with, that I almost looked at them and said, I've known them from another lifetime. I know that we've had a connection already. So that's Source of Guidance.
Yeah, I want to ask you, as you watch these children, do you see, this is maybe a controversial subject, do you feel some of these little children have come in their struggle to actually be teachers for the rest of us?
Yes, there's one little boy the one of them that I looked at his eyes and I said, he's an old soul. He was born at 9 ounces. He was the
Nine
size of
ounces. Oh,
nine
oh my
ounces,
goodness.
and he was the size of a small soda can. And his mother was she is a single mother. She's a decorated military person in Afghanistan twice, has her own injuries. And she was told, you know, you need to abort the child. The baby basically wasn't growing anywhere after the 22nd week. And she finally ended up having the baby at 25 weeks, but they consider him a baby of 22 weeks. And this child has gone through, I can't tell you how many operations. He is the sweetest. He's 5 years old now. He's going to be 6 in January. He is the sweetest little thing. And no matter what happens to him, he's always got this smile on his face. And they said he was never going to walk. And I watched him. I found him on Facebook when he was 8 months old, when he just came home from the NICU. He was there for 8 months. And I've watched him struggle to get up. I've watched him struggle to sit up. And he's just amazing. And they teach us the spirit that's in all of us. And we can learn from these kids that go through such terrible things, but still seem to get through it. And they show us that they can still smile, you know, where the rest of us would be complaining, oh, yeah, I don't feel good. But these kids just have this amazing spirit. And some of them, yes, they come here to be here with us for a while, and then they say, okay, my job is over, I'm going to leave. And then you have the parents that you're trying to hold up also.
Right.
But you're right, they came here with a mission, and we can look at them and say, oh, this poor thing, but we don't realize that they're here to teach us. Let me tell you, they teach me every day. And the way I found these children is during COVID. A lot of mothers were putting the stories up about their children on Facebook, and I would contact them, and I would say 99% of them would come back to me and say, yes, please send whatever you want to send to the children.
Very nice. Yeah. And so the parents, I know the parents will feel more confident and less fearful themselves when they see their child happy, and when they
Yes.
see their child being brave. It really helps the parents. So a project like this where you're helping others. Now, getting back to the spirit input behind this, as you're doing this endeavor in the world, you have the system set up where you support and help through the material objects that you've created and the concept of Hado. Do you find spirit working with you in a way that's tangible? Are they directing you while you're working with the children? Are you hearing them say this one needs more, or are you feeling something? Or are you seeing something? Or are you just in the flow, cognition, flowing in? Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, I have to be very careful, because there are some people that don't believe in what we do.
Right.
And I had a friend who has a compilation book, and she was naming it about the chakras, but she wanted me and Hado Bear to be in it. And I said, well, you know, I don't teach about chakras. I understand it. But she said, I want you to be in it. And I said, well, what I can do is ask a few of the mothers if they could give me a little essay about what they go through as a mother of a special needs child, and about the child. And I contacted a few of the mothers. Some of them said no, because we don't believe in chakras. So I have to be a little careful about how I bring things up. There are some people that I'm very comfortable with saying, look, I know a healer, or maybe I can help you heal. And then there's other ones that I know, you know, don't bring that up. Just help them do what they can do. send them the videos, and they're fine with that. So it's kind of walking a tightrope sometimes with this. And then there's other people that are so open to it that they're very happy that I speak with them about it.
Right.
And that's my joy to be able to do that. Otto Bear, he's so big, I really couldn't put him in the chair. He's 3.5 feet tall. He's huge. But when I look in his eyes, and this might sound very strange, I see a spirit in them. And I really feel that spirit, whatever spirit is in that big stuffed bear, is moving me forward. And I feel like sometimes I say, I don't know, I'm tired. I don't know why I'm doing this, or things maybe aren't working out the way I expected them to. But there's like a freight train coming through me that if I don't do this, and if I leave this earth, I'm going to be kicking myself when I'm on the other side and have to come back and do it again. So I think that's the spirit that I really feel.
I love it. I love the work you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to appeal to our viewers and listeners to recognize that they themselves, they're, as you are, going into the world without the label of medium, without the label of intuitive or psychic, without even really advertising your hypnosis for that matter, right? You're giving in the world your belief system in a manner that is received by everyone. You're in the flow of working with spirit. Spirit comes to you when the need is there. You reach out when the need is there, and you have developed in tandem with the embodiment of those that you've worked with a beautiful system of touching the world and embracing your ministry and offering in the spirit to others. So I'm so glad that you came today, because I know there are others out there that are viewing that, they may want to do something more with their gifts, but they may not know where to go. And so that's their own creative path. That's their own spiritual alignment. But by having you here, I hope they experience some inspiration through your courage, your bravery, and also your willingness to experiment. If anyone viewing this today wants to know more, I have links in the comments below where you can find Kathy and where you can find more about Hado. You can reach out to Kathy. She'll have her email there if you want to know more. And of course, she's got her sourceofguidance.org, which is the website for her foundation. Is it a foundation or just a nonprofit?
It's a charity.
It's a charity. My apologies. Okay. Yeah. So to clarify that, if you want to know more about that, what she's doing, and maybe there's, I don't know, are you accepting people to support you in this process? Are you looking for help?
Absolutely. There's something on the webpage that you can do that. I also have a PayPal page that if somebody wants a link directly to that, send me an email and I'll get that to you right away. And thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Beautiful. And recognize people that if, we have that Children's Week in Lilydale, so we can always use volunteers and helpers. And you can reach out to, I think it's still Patricia Bell, one of our registered mediums. You can find her information on the website under registered mediums or find a medium. And she has been in the past. If she's not now for the summer of 2025, she will be someone you can reach out to. At least she can redirect you. So yes, please recognize that your place in this world is very special. Let me show you that image again. We're all very special, right? We all have a place to express our gifts in the world, and we're needed in the world. And without further ado, thank you again for coming in. And I want to
thank you so much.
That we have one more goodbye, and that is from Hado Bear. So Hado's looking forward to seeing you all again. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.